where I can welcome to our Connect Her, Jacqueline Smith. Jacqueline is the owner and operator of the business Leading Edge, HR Leading Edge. So welcome, Jacqueline, to our Connect Her event.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me today.
I'm really looking forward to finding out more about you and your business, because HR is something that, as you alluded to just at a meeting that we were at earlier, that, you know, some things are really cut and dry, but with HR it isn't. So there's lots of anomalies around that. So Jacqueline, before we get started around HR and what a HR consultant can do, tell us a bit about your background.
Well, I started my career off as in administration. I moved to finance after completing a degree in accounting. That company then sort of, diversified even back then. So this is 30 years ago. And I took on a role more that started to become a HR role, even though back then it wasn't called HR. I eventually undertook postgrad studies and became more knowing of what HR was. Then I moved into an international company where I was for about 16 years. And a lot of my work there was in compliance within ANZ and Asia Pacific. So I stayed there until the company decided to close that part of the operations, and they just ceased here in ANZ. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do? I was already planning on going on holiday. So a friend of mine who has an accounting practice said, well, come back and work for us for until you go on holidays, and let's see what happens. I did that. But I knew that I didn't want to go back into finance, not on a full-time basis. So when I got back from holidays, part of that group that the accounting firm is in have financial planning, and they wanted to open up a HR side of it. So we went ahead. HR Leading Edge is independent to the other businesses, but we are still part of a cousin type relationship, if you like. So, and that's how HR Leading Edge got started.
Wow.
There's just a couple of us that sort of do it. And yeah, so it's been interesting.
So you've really gone from that corporate role into business ownership, and that can be quite challenging in itself, because, and I always, remember that when I was in corporate, you'd say, I need a new flyer. So the marketing department would jump in and do the flyer, or I need this, and the finance department would go, well, here's your budget, go off and spend it. Yeah. Very different when you're a solo owner, or, when you're in a group, but very different, isn't it?
Definitely. As you said previously, if you needed something done, you got somebody else to do it. Now it's, how much is that going to cost? Do I have the budget for it?
Yeah.
Is it worth me spending on it at the moment? But of course, sometimes you need to spend to grow your business, but you're selective on how you spend your money. So you sort of become a jack of all trades, but master of none.
That can be very challenging, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, and really you need to then hone your skills and look at what you can outsource and what you can do yourself, and what you're good at, which isn't always, even though you're good at it, it's not necessarily the best way to spend your time. Mm-hmm. So, I suppose this is also where some businesses can look at what they can outsource. So how could your business benefit and other businesses benefit from a HR consultant using your business?
Well, as you said, it's using your skill set. So for where we sort of basically work with is like small to medium-sized businesses, because they don't necessarily have internal HR people. So, and as some businesses just don't understand what the complexity of HR can be and the legal ramifications there could be if not doing things in the right order or in the right process. So the beauty of having a consultant work with you in your business is that we're not on your books. You can engage us as you need us, or we can work with your company and, you know, go in as you need us, or and developing, you know, your practices with your structure. So we can take care of all those HR issues that you're not necessarily fully aware of or on board with. And you can, as a business owner, continue to work within your business. So we can help either internally or externally, and with all of the HR requirements, you know, dealing with contracts, employment contracts, and just how valid and important they are to a business when you have an employees, regardless if that's one employee or 1,000 employees, although our niche area is sort of trying to work with businesses that's got about 50 employees.
And I would assume that given the state of the nation, well, the world at the moment with COVID and all the things that are going on, businesses are having to either lay off people or stand people down. And each of those, even, you know, standing someone down is different to letting them go. And as a business owner, you may actually not even know that the terminology means something completely different. So, you know, if someone says, oh, I got stood down, well, it may be just for a period of time while the business is going under, you know, some challenges, or it could be, I was completely laid off. So that even in itself, the terminology could be challenging for some businesses.
Well, even the words stood down or stand down, we use it and it's probably used a bit freely, but really in the correct meaning of it is that if your business is affected by natural disasters or things that are totally out of your control, or as such as the COVID that the government has instructed that you have to close, then those employees are stood down and they're in that stand down phase. But for a lot of businesses where, you know, they are still operating, but they stand down, if you like, some employees, it's not necessarily the case. So they aren't legally within the requirements. So they're not. So yes, terminology and interpreting the awards can be like a mind game, and you can be stepping on a mine if you just do not abide by it in the correct manner. So yeah, it can be a dangerous situation for some employers.
And I suppose too, like with the hospitality industry at the moment, with you know, cafes have had to go to, you know, only takeaway coffees, or they're just doing, or you know, restaurants are just doing takeaways. They obviously don't need their service staff, or they don't need as many staff. They'd be really finding it challenging and a minefield of, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And also they've got that added pressure of keeping their business afloat. So this is where I think your services would be ideal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of hospitality customers or clients, and it was that stage. Well, and they have a lot of casual employees, and so it was trying to keep some of those employees engaged, but doing rotations, so their shifts often got less, but they could still stay working. Or some of them, they just sort of, lost shifts altogether due to, not only having takeaway, and it restricted menus in takeaway as well. So, and that's where they've sort of come in, because we've done documentation to reduce shifts, and we've done the documentation to have them in some industries, work from home, to make sure that the practice was done correctly, that the tools were provided, that the work area that they working in is all necessary, and they're not just working at a kitchen bench, and that they can have a routine area to work from, so that like a home office or set up. And some employees have paid for all of that to happen, so they own the equipment and the desk and stuff like that, whereas others have had that. So it's balancing what those requirements were and making sure that you've got documentation, and ensuring that your files, the employee files, showed that they've gone from five shifts down to 4 shifts. And then when they return back to normal, that they're reinstated. So, and it's just keeping the paperwork up to date and knowing, what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, it's, we feel for all businesses that have everybody at some way or another has had some sort of impact. But to, I've got employees that I need to be mindful of. I need to make sure that I sit within the structure and what you need to do for the government. Plus I need to keep paying my bills. Plus I need to try and keep my business afloat. I think having somebody like your business come in and just take that pressure, it's like a little bit of a release valve for business owners to think, well, at least that's getting taken care of on a professional level, and I can focus on what I need to focus on to keep the business afloat. So definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. So it's, it's a setup. It allows the strenuous and the complicated side of business to be handled by somebody that you can rely on and know that they're going to be there to give you the right advice, and to maintain that the paperwork's done, or advise you that, certain steps need to be taken, and that the correct paperwork's done. So, if you're going to make an employee redundant, that you follow the process and the consultation process, and then, you have those discussions, and then you follow up with the correct paperwork again in termination, if they are actually going to be terminated, and just how you look for redeployment of a position if you can, if they fit within. It's not just, getting rid of them. So you need to make sure that it's a genuine redundancy, for example, rather than just, I don't want that person anymore, so we'll just get rid of them, we'll call it redundancy. That, isn't the process, and that's, if you're caught out doing it that way, then there are hefty fines for the business.
Absolutely. So you've talked about contracts, you've talked about legal requirements. So what does, if I was, if I had employees and I needed your services, what sort of services does it offer?
Okay, so we'll manage end-to-end recruitment. So you tell us that you want somebody, we can write the ads, we can write the position descriptions, often, working with the client as well. And then we'll do the interviewing, or do the screening and the interviewing, so we can do that end to end. Performance management. So once you've got your employees and they're on board, and then at least annually you should have a formal performance review with them. And so then it's having that documentation and going through the process and having KPIs, so your key performance indicators, so that the employee knows what to do and what they're working to, and any targets that there has been in their position description, so that they can be assessed and then you know what they're working with. Policies. So all companies should have policies. So once you start getting a few employees, then it's good to have policies so that your direction is known and what is a standard practice and what is acceptable within your organisation is followed. So employees have something to work to. And, you know, policies can be also driven by the legal requirements of what's out there. So it's we can manage investigations. If something happened within the workplace, we can manage the investigation and then report back to the employer of our findings, so they get a report, and then we can take it from there to how that would be managed. So they're just a few of the processes that we can handle for you.
So Jacqueline, some of the people that are in our Connect Her collective and that also listen to podcasts are solopreneurs or business owners that may not have employees, but they have contract people. So they use VAs, or they may use people on a commission sort of basis. Is that something else that you assist with?
Yeah, we also do contracts for contractors. So, and it's important that it's defined that they're a contractor and not an employee, and the process is different. So yes, so we do contracts to engage contractors as well. So, and there's a lot out there that, you know, as you said, don't have employees, but they do have people working for them. So, and it's just, you know, having those in place ensures that as an employer, if you like, understands the difference, and also that the contractor understands the difference between what is their responsibility and what is the employer's responsibility. So,
and I suppose even if it's employee to employer or contractor to contractee, it's all about managing each other's expectations of what the outcomes are and what the expectations from, you know, when I think of HR, I think of the other end of the spectrum, not necessarily, you know, the writing of the ad and the engagement of the person, but when you go through all that process, it is all about handling expectations, which is really what you're all about, isn't it?
it is, yeah, exactly.
But within the legal requirements.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just ensuring that, as you said, the expectations are understood to start with, and then met as the time goes on. So hence why we do performance reviews. And also you can do a performance assessment as well on a contractor. It's not as formal as it is that with employees, but you can assess their work. And if they're not meeting what your expectations are or what they've said that they will do, then you can terminate the contract as well. So
that's really good to know. Particularly, you know, I know there's a couple of people that are in the collective that they engage contractors to do work. They don't engage an employee, just purely because of the ramifications that come with it if you've only got one employee. So it's good to know that there is businesses out there that actually handle that side of it as well, because sometimes you don't know where to look or who to talk to or where to go to be able to have an idea of what to do with a contractor or how they're going to fit within your business or what the expectations are for both parties.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just the same as, you want them to work to the way that you want to work as well, even though they're an individual and, they have the right to engage somebody to do some of the work as well under a contracting agreement. You want to make sure that the people who are doing it and working on your behalf are conducting themselves in the manner that is acceptable to your business and the way that they're going to be branding your business as well. So it's important that the two, match as well.
Absolutely. Now, and that is so true, because it is all about protecting your brand, and it doesn't matter whether it's McDonald's, whether it's Myers, whether it's HR Leading Edge, whether it's Connect Her, or whoever it is all about protecting your brand, because you put a lot of effort into it. A lot of money is spent on branding, and displaying those values throughout, social media and things like that. I've heard, and you might want to comment on this, I've heard where employees have been pulled up on posts that they have done on social media, and they've had their uniform on, and it doesn't convey the same message that the company wishes to convey, or the same values that the company has. So how do people get on like that? I'm throwing you under the bus there with that sort of comment, but it's an interesting one for sure.
And that's why it's important to have a social media policy within your business, which, goes along to state that they should be a nominated person to speak on your behalf, and just what is out there and how, where and who and what they say. So yes, there can be ramifications for the person doing that post, and depending on what that is, it could be legal ramifications, because you don't want your branding destroyed. So, and if you had an employee that was sacked and was annoyed and frustrated, they get out there and they can just go write a blog and totally run your business down, and that's not what you want. So social media policies are a very good one to start with in any size of the business. As I said, in talking to media, if that was the case, you would nominate somebody to speak on your behalf and not open to anybody and everybody. So as I said, if they don't even have to be in a uniform to be out there, as soon as they start commenting about your business, then that's what needs to be careful, and they need to, and the
This
wording they
particular
use.
person actually wasn't even talking about the business. They just happened to be putting a comment out there that was, but they were in uniform, and it wasn't in the same values as the company. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So yeah, so the uniform alone identifies you to that business. And so there's the connection. So if you're bad mouthing or different values, and then that's where, the
all hell can break loose.
And yeah, can happen.
Exactly. So obviously we don't want names, but can you give us a situation that you've had to assist with in the past that might relate, that people can relate to?
Okay. Last year, to start with, we were called in to do an investigation, and she had complained that he, as the chef, was downgrading her, and was yelling and screaming, and she said that he actually raised his hand and actually physically pushed her against a wall. And so, of course, as soon as that comes up, then you've got to start the investigation. And at the end of the day, we interviewed each of the parties separately. We interviewed witnesses that were working on the day, and also then got demonstrations of how the behaviour happened and what actually happened. And as I said, as soon as she put her hand on, and she was pushed, and then it came out that, you know, she told us she was pregnant, and which, you know, the boss at that stage didn't know. So it was all careful how we had to relate that back in our reports. So she felt more threatened, but we couldn't state it was because she was pregnant. So, but our findings showed that he did actually raise a hand and did actually put his hand on her. And so they were both actually reprimanded for their behaviour because of the language that was used and just the physical connection that they used. So, but it is, yeah. And I just even back on that a while back when I was working within the previous organisation, I was actually called in then to do an investigation in China as an independent HR. And I was there at the time, and I actually got picked up and thrown against a wall by the person that the complaint was made about. So there was physical abuse, and so yeah, so he was actually sacked immediately on the spot. But yeah, it was just, I happened to be, you know, a couple of situations I've been at the receiving end of people lashing out or throwing things because I'm the one that's doing the questioning and asking the questions. And so they just get offensive and abusive.
I bet you could write a book
Oh,
of
there's
all the things
a
that,
few instances over the years.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, theft and
Excellent.
all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, I've dealt with a few of those sort of things in my career, and
Yeah.
it's challenging and it's upsetting as well. So yeah, it really does get the old heart pumping, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us. And your website is hrleadingedge.com.au, and we're going to put all the links for that into our into all of our show notes on all the areas. So thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.